podcast series by the Association for Accounting Marketing. I'm Katie Tolin of CPA Growth Guides, your host for today's session. Joining me is Dennis MacGillivray. He is the Accountable Growth Coach. He works with CPA firms across the US and Canada, coaching partners on business development opportunities. He's also got a passion for firms identifying their next-gen growth leaders and training them today. He's worked with firms of all sizes and a diverse group of partners. So he has a lot of knowledge that we're going to tap into. So welcome, Dennis.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So today we're going to be talking about coaching partners through opportunities. As marketers and business developers, we often get to help partners land that big fish they're chasing. However, we don't know a lot about coaching. Marketers and marketers may know nothing, and they even are learning the sales process. Business developers, they have their own method, but that doesn't mean they know how to coach someone else. So hopefully you can share some good tips with us, Dennis, about how to do that. So let me start by asking you, what is the role of a coach? What does that look like? What should people be doing?
I think a coach is really a guide, somebody that is seasoned, ideally, in the process of decision-making. So when you think about it, we're in a professional services firm trying to sell our services, but on the other side, you've got a client trying to make a decision. How do I get this problem solved that I've got? And what are the decision steps I should go through? So a good coach is somebody that knows the decision-making process from the client side and matches up our sales process and puts those together, and then guides the team or the partner who's driving this process through those steps, thinking all the while there's some things that we should be doing and there's some things that our prospect or client should be doing at each step of the way, so that we go through the whole decision-making process in unison. That's the coach's job, to help make that happen.
Okay, so I've coached a few opportunities in my day, and one thing that I see is partners wanting to chase everything. Any opportunity that comes to the door is right up their alley. So how do we get partners to realize that they need to focus on the right type of work for the firm?
Well, I learned something from Booz Allen Hamilton a long time ago that has served me well ever since. So I'm going to show you this. I don't know if you can see that, Katie.
I can.
Okay, so if you can still hear me, what this quadrant is, these sets of quadrants is, it gets you to think through the ideal client and the ideal opportunity. And if you look up the y-axis there, at the top you see reputation wins some. So if you've got an ideal client that is a good fit for your firm, then you'll likely win some work. On the other side, at the bottom, the x-axis, you see one-shot deal. That may be something you're really good at, but if you sell it to the wrong fit of a prospect, that's not going to be a long-term relationship. And if it's not long-term, it's going to end up right down there, a red, wish I'd never seen this client in my life type of thing. If it's up in the top, in this quadrant, you've got an ideal fit. That's a good fit with your firm and a great fit with what you do. So if you will take the time to educate or question or just discuss, is this a good fit for our firm? Is it the type of firm that fits well with, or client that fits well with our existing client list? Is this the kind of work that we really do well at? Have we got the resources to do it and the time to do it? The time frame may want it. If we go through that filter process, we'll have a lot better chance of getting up in that right-hand quadrant where it's fun and rewarding. That's a long-term sustainable revenue stream that everybody wants.
So obviously you've seen that a few times yourself, that you have a whole model for us to follow. So outside of that, are there any other mistakes, one or two that you might see partners make a lot in the sales process?
The biggest single mistake is what I call show up and throw up. It makes you sick to watch, because it's let me tell you all about what we do and how good we are, and I'll start with this PowerPoint. Hold your questions till the end, please. Blah 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 blah. If you do that, you're sunk before you start. And I've watched it over and over in my career, where we just get so caught up in ourselves we forget that we're there and supposed to be focusing on the client and their needs. That would be the biggest single problem I encounter.
So, okay, so we talked about what you see as mistakes. So let's go to the positive side. What are people doing right? And what is that? What have you seen?
The thing that is overwhelmingly positive is someone who will listen, who asks open-ended questions and really tries to understand what the client's going through. What are the issues that they're facing? You know, a good set of questions that gets at this, 4 simple questions that I wish everybody would ask. Katie, if you're the prospect, if we were sitting here 3 years from now, what would have to have happened for you to feel happy with your progress? Paint that picture for me. What's your vision look like? Now, if you're asking a CEO or a senior person, they'll have an answer, and it'll be hard to get them to stop talking. Second question, well, life being what it is, what do you know about now that could be a barrier or a challenge that you're going to have to deal with along the way to that great vision you just described? And it could be in one of 3 buckets, I guess: people, process, technology. What are the problems you know about now or might emerge? They will talk and talk and talk. And when they run out of breath on that question, ask the third question, which is, what about the flip side? To your point, what are the good things? What are the strengths or opportunities that you could leverage that could even get you there faster? Again, people, process, technology. They'll give you all kinds of information about what their lay of the land is right now. The last question I like everybody to ask is, we try to put ourselves out there as a trusted business advisor, but I'd be a bit foolish to suggest that I know what that means to you. So what's that mean to you? What's a trusted business advisor look like? If you'll listen to those, ask those questions, listen to the answers, and document it, and feed that back in the proposal process, you'll win more than you lose.
So I love that you gave us questions to ask. I also like that you said document it. I love when somebody comes back with written answers that we can reference later. But how can we encourage partners to listen? You know, I'm a marketer, I'm a business developer. I give you these questions and said, hey, go ask these and write stuff down. Is there anything that we can guide them on or tips we can give them to get them to be that great listener?
I'll tell you, when I started my career at Price Waterhouse a long, long time ago, I felt like I was hamstrung because I had what I thought were all these great ideas that could make them more effective, but the partners didn't want to listen. They wanted to do it themselves. The way I was able to kind of wiggle my way in was to offer to be the scribe. Let me go and take notes for you. Let me just take notes and summarize and document all this, and then give you the email to send right afterwards. So could I do that? Could I play that role for you? Take the load off for you. Then when I got in there always seemed to be an opportunity to just add one more question, or sometimes kind of shift the conversation with a question, or I wonder if we should ask this, or we talked about this earlier, Bruce, did you want to cover that? That type of thing seemed to work. And I was like a bag carrier for many years before I was allowed to go out on my own. But I think an important attitude, I suppose, would be somebody taught me this: the 3 H's. Be first of all humble, be helpful, and be hungry. And whether you're in front of a prospect or you're in front of a partner or your own team internally, I think those 3 attributes probably will fit very well. Be humble, be helpful, and be hungry to help.
I think those are great. And I love the fact that you went along. So many times people are afraid that bringing somebody else is going to, you're going to say something stupid and ruin the opportunity, and, positioning yourself as the scribe. I'm sure you had that opportunity to ask a question and somebody probably cringed and then realized, that's what he's talking about.
That's not a bad question. I'm glad you asked. So you get that. I'm really glad you asked that question. I was kind of off in my own world. This whole process of earning credibility, I think, is critical for an internal resource. You've got to make them comfortable that you're credible, that you've got good ideas. And so leading up to that, I would say plan. Do your best to get them in a room for even 15, 30 minutes to plan through, here's who we're going to be going to meet. Here's what we anticipate their needs to be. Some things that we should be prepared to share. Some questions we should ask to make sure we get that knowledge while we're there. You can pepper or prepare that partner or the team really well by going through that preparation, that planning session in advance.
Which leads me to the question that we struggle with is, how do you get the partners time? So many times they're on their way, to an opportunity. You get 5 minutes before they walk out the door. This is great. So, I understand they've got competing priorities, but this is important. And I really liked what you said about taking time to plan before you go. So any tips to help get us involved before the last 5 minutes?
So a book I read a long time ago has stuck with me ever since. It's called Getting Customers and Keeping Them for Life by Michael LaBeouf. He talks in the first chapter about a car dealership, and the owner is trying to hire a salesperson. And the salesperson comes in, he says, okay, so how would you sell me a car? And it's a Cadillac dealership. At the time, the Cadillac was the creme de la creme to have. And so the sales rep wannabe goes through his process of trying to sell the car. And the owner says, very kindly, he says, I just want to tell you something about our dealership. He says, we actually don't sell cars here. Guy goes, what do you sell? He says, we solve transportation problems for families is what we do here. Everybody that walks in that door there is $1 million customer. And the reason they may be in here for a $20,000 Cadillac. At the time, that was a ton of money. But they've got aunts and uncles and brothers and cousins and nieces and nephews, and we are going to solve all their transportation problems for the rest of their life. And believe me, they're $1 million customer. I've never forgotten that. And when I see people rushing too much and not taking the time to plan, I tell that story. And I go, I guess we're going after what could become $1 million customer, right? A client that's going to feed us we get an annuity, and then we start with a little bit of tax work, and then we start doing something comes up, they want to make an acquisition, or they want to get rid of something, they need a valuation. There's all sorts of things that are going to come up that is going to make that $1 million client, if we've qualified them using that little method I was sharing. Go after what's a good fit for your firm, what we're good at. They'll become $1 million clients over years.
I guess when you think about $1 million, you're going to spend a little more time on it than you would a $20,000 opportunity.
That's the idea. Get them to focus. That number rings well with most people.
Okay, so I have the $1 million question for you, because if you have an answer, there's probably somebody who would pay you that much for it. But how do we go about holding partners accountable for the sales process? And I guess especially talk to us as marketers and business developers. We have no say over partner compensation or any factor really that contributes to that. So how do we hold partners accountable to following the process for qualifying the lead and chasing the right people?
So the answer that I have for that is get in front of those partners, a pipeline, and make it transparent. Before that, start at the top. So get the most senior person, your managing partner, or whoever has got a lot of juice to agree that, we want to measure our progress in bringing in new business and expanding all business. How are we going to measure that? Well, it's going to be a pipeline. And you'll get into a great long discussion about CRM and how bad it is and the quality of the data and all that. Well, none of that really matters if we really think about what are we trying to do here? We're trying to grow the firm. And you, Ms. CEO or managing partner, are the lead growth generator in this firm. And I'm here to help you. So I've got some tools, I've got some ideas from outside. It's always great to say, I got the outside expert to come in, and they've done it here, here, and here. So I'm and benchmark and compare yourselves to others that your firm thinks is good. Those are always good ways to compare and to raise the bar. You're trying to raise people's expectations and to get them to be accountable. You can't really do that unless you have some way to measure. So a pipeline, and a transparent pipeline where, say, every other week or every week you get together and you share what's on the pipeline and how it's moved from step 1 to step 5, if that's your steps of your sales cycle. So as a marketer or a business developer, you can be the guide. You can, again, be the scribe, be the person that organizes the meetings, gets people together, and then say, let's go through this together. How's it going? Let's especially talk about the ones that are stuck, because maybe as a group, we can brainstorm and come up with ideas to move it through the pipeline. I run those kind of meetings for clients from the phone, I like the motorcycle, so I'll pull off and get a nice shady spot. And we'll have this kind of discussion sometimes. But you can play that role as a marketer or a business developer, or borrow the credibility from somebody outside and involve them just for that piece. If you've got all the rest, the key to getting people to change, to coaching, I think, is you've got to have credibility. If you don't personally have credibility, then borrow it from somebody else, or get somebody else who has credibility and use them appropriately. And your role in managing that is crucial, because it wouldn't happen without you. Understand that you won't be able to walk in and just immediately have credibility if you haven't done it yourself. So over years, I was able to get in that position, starting as being a bag carrier and a scribe and doing all the things that needed to be done. But eventually got out in front of clients and was able to start to sell and then gain my own credibility. Then I could say, well, this worked over here, maybe it'd work in this situation. Be a storyteller of success stories and say, well, maybe if it worked for them, maybe we could use that. What do you think? That would be some thoughts on how to do that role of coach and hold people accountable.
You know, it was interesting because my mind went back to your comment on be helpful. Yes. And ultimately, it comes back to that. I mean, if you truly have someone's best intentions at heart and you're helpful, that goes a long way. Also, you said something about until you gain credibility or go get that credibility. So if I don't have credibility, I'm new to my firm, or I've never been in a sales role, so you don't believe a darn thing I say, I can build that. It'll take time, but how do I go get credibility?
Go find people that are already doing it. AIM is a great source. Go to Winning is Everything. Go to conferences and listen. Find people that will help you. I went to a conference once. I was on the board of Strategic Account Management Association, and there was a conference. Because I was on the board, I should be at the conference, and I was trying to fly back to my hometown. It was the last session of the day. Was a panel of procurement people, and I don't particularly like procurement people. I'll admit that, but I thought I should stay because one of our clients was speaking, and he was, surprisingly to me, fantastic. This guy was really good. He talked about partnering with sales people and people that were firms that were selling them services rather than the typical vendor relationship that procurement often has, And I went up to him right after. I was short for time. I said, that was a fantastic talk, Russ. What was going through my mind is I'd love for our clients to hear you give that talk. If you came, I know you come to our city periodically. If I got together some senior procurement people from around the country or around that city, would you be willing to give this same talk? And he goes, well, sure, as long as there's no competitors in the room, sure. So it took me about 3 months to get 8 senior VPs or executive VPs of strategic sourcing or procurement from our clients and our prospects. I got 8 of them in a room, and I got Russ to come for lunch, and we put the lunch on. And he did a fantastic job. At the end of the talk, one of the clients of ours, a senior VP, strategic sourcing, comes up to me and says, Dennis, can you come over to my office after this afternoon? Do you have time? I said, of course. I go over there, and he says, I am so glad. I know how hard it is to get people like us at this level in a room. And that guy was full of ideas, and man, did I ever need him, because I just got this job. He was a banker. And he says, I don't know the first thing, but he had all kinds of good ideas. But let me tell you this. We're a bank, and we've got an entire building over in this other city, 10 stories of print and document management. He says, we're a bank. What are we doing that for? He says, we're going to outsource that whole thing. And we need somebody to help. And I think that guy, Russ, can help. Now, what the long story short is, they hired Russ and one other. They were going to go sole source. This was a huge 10-year deal. They outsourced the entire print and document management they split it in half to one company and Russ's company. And they used us to help coordinate and manage that entire deal. That paid for my conference fee to Emma for a long time.
I'm sure it did. Hey, so I can't not ask you, since I have you, about firms raising up their next gen growth leaders. I know that's something that you believe strongly in. succession is something that's talked about in firms all the time, and they're more worried about, how do you succeed partners and leadership and client service and technical expertise, but you also have to have succession in your rainmaking abilities. So what should firms be doing to build their next gen growth leaders?
Well, it's one of my passions to talk about this. So I'll try and keep it. If you have to cut me off, tell me.
Okay.
So for the last couple of years, I've been really focused on this one subject and have come up with 8 mindsets that we would all agree are critical for growth leaders. And then with thinking through all the people I've run into along the way, I've created this grid. And you can certainly get it. We can probably provide you with the details on how to get this online. But you'll see that there's several columns. And 4 columns, so we've got 8 mindsets, and then descriptions of each mindset if they're kind of low in that area, or at the other end, mastery in that mindset. So what I've used this for is to help firms identify their next gen growth leaders, and then on an online anonymous way, they can go in there and self-assess in each of these mindsets and say, where do I stand and where do I want to go in this mindset? Now, the ones that score to the far left are probably never going to be business developers, and they'll self-select out. They'll go, this isn't for me. I didn't become an accountant to have to sell. So that's not for me. Great. Now you've eliminated a bunch of revenue or expense that you would have tried to train the wrong people. So this helps to filter those out. The others start to get more interested and have more questions on how can I move towards mastery? And I realize this is going to be a long journey, but I want to get there, and I want to contribute to growth. It may be because I want to become a partner in my firm, and I know I have to show that I can do that. So that's a tool to help people. I think self-assessment is very important, because if they'll buy into the idea that they've got to improve, then they'll be more open to coaching and support and help along the way. So that's one thing that's helped clients that I've worked with identify them and then start to grow them in that direction.
And I like the fact that you said some people just aren't going to be that one, and you got to recognize that.
I'm not a believer in changing spots or stripes on a zebra. Some people are really good at some things. Let them do that. Some people are great at growth and business development. They'll help get those other people lots of business. So I guess Gifts Differing is a book I read a long time ago that I really like. It's got a good ring to it, because we all do have different gifts. And if we stick to our highest and best use and develop that as well as we can, we're all going to be able to pull our weight.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I think you shared a lot of great tips. I love the questions that you actually shared. We'll be jotting those down and taking them to our partners. So I appreciate your time.
Thanks for the opportunity. Glad to help.
Absolutely. And this wraps up another episode of AAMplify. Please watch for another podcast from the Association for Accounting Marketing next month. And always remember to aim high.
Listen